Working on the 2004 Ford F-150 today. I had these, I put these fans in, and I also changed the thermostat in it. The thermostat on these 2004 F1 with a 4.6 V8 Triton is on this. Well, it's usually where they all are in our car, all cars, but right behind the radiator hose where it comes from the radiator, the main one coming to the engine, right inside this little housing, there's a little spring, and that spring is usually where the thermostat is, or pretty much always. But I replaced that a while ago, and the only reason was because during the summer when we were towing our camper, it would overheat only when you're towing the camper and you're stopped. Like if you're driving and there's wind flow coming inside of it, it's fine. That's why I put these fans in there, auxiliary fans, to kind of help the wind flow. But like if there was traffic on a hot day and you're not pushing air, forcing air through the radiator, then it would start to slowly overheat. So I changed the thermostat. It still did it after the thermostat. So I'm thinking the radiator works fine, because usually if you have a radiator issue, it will completely overheat all the time. Like not just towing, not just on a hot day, anytime you get to driving on the freeway or whatever, it'll start overheating, I think. So I think it's not the radiator. Well, I've had a car that does that with the radiator before, bad radiator, and it was like anytime you drive, it doesn't even have to be hot, it would overheat. So I don't think it's the radiator. I already changed the thermostat. There's a way to test the thermostat. The way you would test the thermostat is just like by taking it out. I guess if you have like a super expensive thermostat, but usually thermostats are pretty cheap. Well, on older vehicles, I don't really work on newer vehicles, so maybe they're expensive on newer vehicles, but you can test the thermostat by boiling a pot of water, and then you take out the thermostat. It's like a little spring loaded saucer, and you boil water, throw the thermostat inside the boiling water, and if the spring opens, then it's a good thermostat. But I didn't even test it because they were $20 for this truck, so I just went ahead and put 20 bucks in and changed it. But now I'm gonna go ahead and change the fan clutch. It's a brand new fan clutch that I got Duralast, and the fan clutch on this one, well, on all of them, is right here where the fan's at. It sits inside of the fan. Just have to loosen up that nut right there. I definitely don't want to take off the radiator hose and lose all my coolant. I'll take off the tube for the air filter, and then I'm gonna start trying to get that out. Like I said, it should be a pretty straightforward job. Once I loosen up that nut right there, once that nut is loose, then I can pretty much pull out the whole fan and change it out here. Put the fan, take off the old clutch that sits in the fan, and then put the new clutch inside of the fan and put it back in. So hopefully I can wiggle it out, because I don't want to take off the radiator hose. But if I can't wiggle it out, I mean, there's a chance I may have to take off this whole wind tunnel, which at that point would just be a couple bolts top and bottom. But you know, I'm gonna go ahead and try to do it the quickest method first, which is just trying to wiggle it out instead of having to take off the air cleaner, taking off the radiator hose, take off the wind tunnel, and make all this space. So let's see if we can do it that, you know, the simplest way. So I'm going to start by taking this off, seeing if I can access that big nut that's down there. What I'm gonna try to do with this is try to, with the crowbar, try to jam it in here and kind of jam up the engine so it doesn't spin. Because when I'm pulling the wrench, it's starting to spin the pulley. I thought it would be tighter, but it's pretty loose actually. So let's see if I can find a way to just jam it in here. Because every time I turn that nut, the fan starts spinning, so you can't really get leverage on it. So let's see if I can find a way to jam it up here. All right, I tried throwing a crowbar in there, like putting a crowbar up against one of these nuts in the back, or bolts in the back, and jamming it up against something. I tried putting a nut on those and holding it to see if I can get it from not spinning. Still spins. So I'm gonna go ahead and try something else here. Okay, after about 10 minutes or so of trying to find a way to hold it without moving, this is the best that I came up with, and I think it's a pretty good idea actually. You see, I got a crowbar right here. This crowbar, I put it right up against the nut, and the crowbar, you can't see it because the hose, but see, the crowbar runs up, and it's sitting up against a piece of the body in here. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and loosen it up and see if that can get me loose enough. I think that should work though. It's just basically creating a little bit of resistance in the opposite force, on the opposite way. So let me give it a shot, see how it does. I think that's gonna work, but it just it slipped on me. Let me try to get it back here. All right, here was my next idea. I measured in, I tried to do what I did with the crowbar, where I had the crowbar there and propped up against something over here, but over here just didn't have enough strength. So down there's a chassis. I tried to put a piece of, I measured from the chassis up to the first bolt, and I tried a piece of 2x4, and I jammed it between the chassis and the first bolt, and it worked good, but the wood was too soft. Look, it just cut a notch out of the corner where the bolt was at. So I was like, all right, well, that should work with metal. So then I cut this square tubing right now, 15 3/8, and it's just sitting right up against the chassis, and it's sitting right up against the bolt, and I'm pretty sure that's gonna get it loose. That's basically what the tool is. If you were to go buy the tool or rent the tool, there's a little tool. I think there's a tool for this, but yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's gonna work. All right, guys, and there you have it. That was about all you had to do. I got it loose here, as you can see. Zoom in on this nut right here. See how it's coming off without the whole housing spinning and spinning the belt. It's about to come off. And that was with just basically all I had to do for this one. If you guys are doing it to this 4.6 liter Ford engine, because these are not just in F150s, they're in like Ford Crown Victorias and stuff like that. All you have to do is get a piece of metal, measure from the bottom of the chassis right there, bottom of the chassis, and then you prop that metal just like so. Put the metal on the bottom of the chassis and then put it to the nut right there, and then turn it. That's all I did. See if I can set it up here. show you how I did it. Nope, I can't spin that anymore. So I was gonna try to set it up to show you exactly how I had it, but basically all it is just putting it up against the chassis and then sitting it up against one bolt right there. And then once you start turning it, that bolt's gonna rest on the edge of the metal, and then you just keep turning that nut and it pops right off. That's probably basically what a tool is. If you get a tool, I'm pretty sure they have a tool for this. They usually have a tool for stuff like that, but yeah, that's really all it is. I'm gonna go ahead and take this off. But yeah, let me spin this off, see if I can get it out, and then we'll throw the new one back on. There it goes. See if we can get it out without having to remove the wind tunnel and everything else. It's gonna be the tricky part. All right, there you have it. A little bit of scratching around, but we got it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take this clutch off. Gonna put this new clutch right back on. And we're gonna take it out just with these bolts, 2, 3, 4. And that's like a little housing. I think they give some new bolts here, not that we need them, but I'll put them. If they came with it, I'll put them. All right, so that's basically it. Loosen up these 4 bolts. And this little housing, little black cover should come off. Fan clutch should fall out. Set the new clutch in, and we'll throw it back on. Tiny amount of removable thread locker, tiny amount. So I don't know if you could tell by the video, but how loose these bolts were. Like these are little cheap, you know, little tiny bolts. These are the bolts that always come loose and fall off. right. I'm gonna go ahead and put it back in there, lock it back up. Yes, I'm gonna put some removable thread locker in just a little bit, and the only reason I put this is for security. You know, it's good for putting it in bolts in places like this where it's kind of tight, it's moving. You may not have enough leverage or whatever to get it as tight as you want comfortably. It's a spinning part, tons of vibration here. A little bit of removable, only removable. Please do not be the asshole that goes and puts a huge bottle or a whole bottle of the red permanent thread locker. A little bit of removable and you'll be fine. There you go. See, I'm gonna tighten it up. Look, I got my bar up against the nut. This is exactly what it's on the other side. Bar up against the nut, resting on the chassis, and that's it. It's already pretty much tight. I'm just gonna go ahead and get the wrench, give it a couple taps with the adjustable wrench in the tightening direction, and it should be good to go. Just a couple taps. But see, that's why I like to use some of that thread locker, because this is not a bolt. This is not an angle where you can, you know, when you feel a little bit insecure about how tight something is, you want to kind of give it a little bit of muscle. This one, it never feels like you're going to get it tight enough. So you always have that little reassurance. I got the thread locker. So as soon as it dries, a little bit of vibration, doesn't matter if it's tight or not, you know, it'll be nice and secure. It's just like why you always got to use thread locker when you torque things to like a ridiculously low specs, like when you're putting engines together. I mean, a lot of moving parts are torqued ridiculous at like 60 foot-pounds or 40 foot-pounds or 75 foot-pounds. And 75 foot-pounds is nothing. It feels like no kind of tightness. But you put a little bit of thread locker and it gives you that little reassurance that when it dries, that it's not gonna come off on you. Another thing I like to do to vehicles when I get them, I didn't just get this one, but you know, I figured while I was in here doing the job, I noticed these little marks, these little smashes where these little grates are what suck in air, and then you have coolant that flows through those little bars behind it, and that's kind of what helps it cool. And if your radiator, I don't know, maybe during a botched install job or doing something where they just hit it, or I don't know, whatever the case may be, if you look at the front of your radiator and you see these little fins are like this, kind of like smushed in, it's not a bad idea to come in here with like a knife or a screwdriver and just prop them back open so that air can flow back through them. That's just a little quick tip, guys. Okay, there it is, job's done. Everything's all put back together. Again, this is the 4.6 Ford V8, the small V8. This is not just an F-150. This is also in Crown Victorias and other Ford vehicles. They put this engine in multiple different vehicles. So if you're having this issue and you were trying to do the job at home, realized you needed the tool, but the car's apart, couldn't go get one, whatever the reason may be, because I'm pretty sure they have a tool for this. This is a surefire way. Just make a little measurement, cut a piece of metal, and put it in there. It's basically what the tool is going to do for you anyways. It's just creating hold on one side so that you can loosen the bolt without moving the back pulley. That's all it is. But so yeah, we did the job, and I guess what good would the job be without a little bit of paisa engineering, huh? But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe.